Ladies and gentlemen, it is lightning round on Better Sports Network on Fantasy Alarm. It is week 16. You might be starting your playoffs. You might be moving on to the semifinals, but we are here to help you get through the grind. Coop, my man, Britt will be joining us straight from the Noogs on ESPN. Coop, what's going on, brother? How you doing?
Just chilling, man. Just trying to absorb everything that happened this weekend, man. A lot of crazy stuff. It's hard to say what teams are frauds, what teams are not after recent matchups, right? Like, it's kind of crazy. Obviously, the 49ers good team, but, I mean, there's a lot of these teams where I don't know. I just don't know, dude.
We can't just sort the Eagles into the, safe and, secure teams. Even Baltimore is having, issues with Jacksonville. I mean,
Mhm.
look, we can't really parse everything, really anything to this point. And that's what's great about the NFL. Our fantasy teams, at least, the ones that got in the playoffs and maybe didn't advance, those are terrible, of course. One little thing maybe could have changed some fortunes, and that's the beautiful game that we love of fantasy football, where you can point to kind of one thing, and maybe if that had gone right, we'd be moving on. But it is what it is. Hopefully you guys have some teams that will be advancing. I know we do. I have my Kings Classic team moving on to face Curtis Patrick of RotoViz in the
So,
semifinals. Yeah.
there's so only 4 teams left in that one? Is that just kind of typical playoffs?
Yes, myself, Curtis Patrick, Bob Harris, the legendary Bob Harris, and our own Colby Conway.
Nice.
Definitely a
Fantasy
lot of
Alarm got
fun.
some shots at it. I actually did have a matchup where I lost to Howard Bender in the Bourbon Bowl. So a little Fantasy Alarm on Fantasy Alarm crime there. My team was good all year long and just fell apart at the end. So shout out Bender, moving on there.
Yeah, absolutely. And moving
Hey.
on into lightning round, it's Britt Flinn. How you doing?
I'm a little disheveled. Last night was a game. I was very nervous, very worried. Um, the Jalen
Yes.
Hurts situation um, really just completely tilted me. But I ended up pulling out a big win.
Good.
The guys in the league are still, talking their trash, booking things. So I will be keeping receipts and it's going to be very fun. How are you guys?
Not too bad. Other than my best ball teams, we talked about it. I bricked them all but four. Kings Classic, we're good. Got on buy in a bunch of leagues, so we'll be starting some of the playoff marches there. But look, it's not about us. I want to know how you guys are doing, but after that, look, we've got some under the radar players that we can help people get to the finals, get to the semifinals, but. Yeah, other than that, anything else before we jump into that stuff?
I want to hear what the chat's got going on. You got any leagues where you guys are fighting for playoff spots, still hanging in? So you guys, Preston, Toronto, Dave, Ryan, what's up, gang? Let us know. I want to know what you guys are doing. What you still have on the line. Anybody still in Scott Fishbowl? I know Scott Fishbowl is getting down there. How many teams are left in that one?
Not a lot. I mean, I think we're probably in the couple hundred, I would say. I don't have the playoff format offhand, but I'm sure we can get the correct research team to get on that.
Yeah.
I also want to shout out the number of women in the Scott Fish Bowl, like in the top 40. Samantha Praviti, I don't know if she's still in first place, but last week or the week before was in the number one spot in Scott Fish Bowl. I've seen a lot of women on Twitter in, like the top 50, things like that. Like, we're here and we're going to stay. Maybe
That's
this is the
awesome.
first year that a woman is crowned champion in the
Yeah.
Scott Fish Bowl, and I cannot wait for that.
I'm checking it out right now. Looks like there's a good number. There's about 50 people left, and definitely a good number of women in here. So
Yeah, good friend Stephanie Miller also
it's anyone's
in that
game.
mix too.
Yeah. So yeah, we'll have to see.
Can't wait. I'm
Yep.
sending all my witchy vibes your way.
Absolutely. Definitely love it. We already got some questions in the chat, so let's hit those before we get into everything here. Look, Preston certainly does not have any issues with his quarterback. I mean, the only issue is which one of your elite stud quarterbacks do you start? Because I'm sorry, now that I have Brock Purdy starting on my Kings Classic team, he is now an elite quarterback. So start Purdy or Jackson this week. I have both and go.
And they're playing each other.
Yep.
Which is it's wild. Yeah. I mean, it's funny. Like all the stats, all the charts say that Purdy's good. People can deny it all they want, but the numbers are there, man. And it's like, you know what? Going through time, most good quarterbacks had good players they played with. You know what I mean? Like Peyton Manning played with Marvin Harrison and Reggie Wayne and Demaryius Thomas and Emmanuel Sanders and all these guys. Like Joe Montana played with Jerry Rice, right? So like you can't just sit here and say, oh, well, there's too many good players on the team. Like good teams have good players, right? And they have good quarterbacks too. So I'm not worried about it.
Should I pull up the breaking news on that one, by the way?
Right,
Good
yeah,
teams have
breaking
good players.
Exactly. So I don't know. These guys, I have been working on my rankings today, and I have them back to back. Right now, I have Lamar Jackson ahead, but it's close. I mean, it's a matter of the rushing upside is the difference, right? It's kind of bad matchups for both of them, but I think that game is going to be good enough that it's going to be just fine. So I don't know. I kind of lean Lamar, but I could be swayed. Britt, what do you think?
Yeah, I'm leaning Lamar too. He hasn't been great in the passing game, but still that rushing upside that you've got. Christian McCaffrey, I feel like is too big of a factor that he could potentially take away from Purdy and that production that he gets. Jackson at least has that solid floor, especially now with Keaton Mitchell going out. Like they lost another running back. So there aren't that many carries or people to split those carries in that Baltimore backfield. So yeah, I'm going to go Jackson.
I will be contrary. I'm going Brock. I understand the rushing upside, but look at the team. Look at the weapons around him. Debo is on another level right now. Brandon Ayuk, Christian McCaffrey, George Kittle. Brock Purdy has 4 top 6 finishes in the last 5 weeks. There is not there's nothing that you can get me off of Brock Purdy with right now. And I know Lamar, the rushing upside, that's great. Now that, obviously I lost Keaton Mitchell, but still that pass catching core kind of worries me with how spotty they've been, especially like Zay Flowers, Odell Beckham, likely has been almost their most consistent weapon in the passing game. So give me Brock Purdy. I'm not getting off this train. As an unabashed Trey Lance guy, I am now fully blue pilled on Brock Purdy.
There you go. Well, then I guess we're split on it. 2 out of 3 say Lamar Jackson, so you know where to go, Preston.
Yep, Brock Purdy. We've got a couple more questions. How do you play Cup or Puka? The Cup or Puka. So having to, figure out which one you're going to be starting each week. Start them both if you can.
Start them both if you can. Otherwise, I'm going to start Cooper Kupp.
Yeah.
Because he's Cooper Kupp.
He's looking healthy now. So, right. I mean, you're talking about a consensus top 5 guy. I mean, Puka Nacua is like right around that top 12 periphery too.
And for this week especially, like their usage isn't identical. Puka does play more outside. Cooper Kupp plays in the slot and then moves outside for 2 wide receiver sets. And you're going to get Alante Taylor this week, so who has been pretty easy.
Do you want to rehash that, Coop? Do you want the mentions to blow up this week?
Hit me up. Alante is free to hit me up whenever he wants, dude. Whenever he wants. Whenever he got very upset that I posted his statistics, right? And
how dare you tell the truth, Coop?
Right, and I told people to bet that Josh Downs would have more than 4.5 receptions, and he had 7. So, I mean, I don't know. What do you want me to say?
I keep putting Alante Taylor in the matchup previews over at Fantasy Alarm, and I have yet to get a mention from Alante Taylor.
I keep betting actual money on his overs on his tackles, and it keeps hitting.
Well,
he's letting people catch the ball, which means he's getting a lot of tackles. So, I really like Alante Taylor. That's my boy.
I've got the low key shade, I think.
Yeah, I didn't even tag him. I didn't even tag him in the post.
I know.
He was on Twitter searching his name, so.
Who hasn't Googled themselves, okay?
Yeah.
Christian Watson, he's got his dad to do it for him.
I mean, what was the thing that happened with this other former player that's been circulating on
talking about
Twitter.
Rashad
are we?
Mendenhall. Yeah, dude, I got no tolerance for that kind of stuff. Like, that's the thing, is that, of course, this is my take on it. There's, of course, different types of racism. And the biggest problem is institutional racism, which, is the biggest issue for minorities, right? But there's another flavor of racism where you just dislike people of different races, and anyone can be a victim of that. White people, black people, anybody. So if that, with his attitude there, it's not the institutional racism. That's a specific kind of racism, and it's still racism. So that's my take on that, dude. I don't like seeing that at all. But there should be no segregation on that type of stuff. If you were truly not racist, then you wouldn't even think about it.
Right. Like, yeah. The one thing I just don't understand is how you can put that tweet up, or type those words out and be like, all right, this looks good.
This makes sense. Yeah, exactly. Right. It's like, that's crazy to me. You know what I mean? But again, like, 100%, there is another type of racism, the institutional type, that is like a totally different story than this type of thing. You know what I mean? So I don't know. That's all I got to say about that. And nobody wants to see that. Nobody wants to hear
it. I wasn't going there. I was just talking about people Googling themselves and looking themselves up. But anyway, let's move on. What's the next question?
Let's get off of this soapbox and move to another involving Chris Olave from Red Rizzle. PPR, if Olave plays, see a top 12 option play over Puka. I mean, as long as he's healthy, you've got yourself a coin flip, I would say. And I would probably I'd lean toward Olave here.
They play Thursday. I need to see Olave start practicing right now. Like, right.
That's the big caveat. That is the big if.
I still think that I would play Puka, because New Orleans pass defense has really gone down over the past few weeks. Like, Marshawn Lattimore is still on IR. They've given up a bunch of big plays. Again, Alontae Taylor.
Right.
Like, they've got a bunch of problems in their secondary. I would still lean Puka, because Matthew Stafford has been on fire.
Right. This should be a good Thursday game, as good as they can be, because at least both teams have bad pass defenses. So, over under set at like 45 should be fun. So we'll see.
A showdown lineup that we might actually have some interest in setting a lineup in.
Who would have known?
Who knew? All right.
Who would have known?
Yeah. Funny how things work out. You put two halfway decent teams on, not the Patriots and Steelers, and sorry, Coop, but they suck.
I mean, I don't know. The game last week was entertaining, if nothing else.
Right. Yeah. If nothing else.
It was a train wreck. We could not look away. Like, are they just going to keep doing this? They can't keep getting away with this. That's what last Thursday felt like.
Right. Ryan here. I'm playing fourth place. Have Prescott, Fields, a QB. We got the whole roster. Who to go with?
Barkley, Hall, Henry, Chandler, Spears, McCaffrey, Madison.
This
how is McCaffrey buried down in there?
Right. Like, yeah. Well, there's a lot to sort here. Obviously, we don't know if Madison's going to be back or not for the Vikings. I mean, we don't know if Keenan Allen's going to be back for the Chargers. I mean, there's still a lot to parse here, but
Nico Collins, we don't know if he's going to play either. Yeah, we need a little bit of time on this one. The one I will say is that I'm probably going to start Trey McBride, just because I like the matchup for him, and he's been so good lately. It's hard to go away from Trey McBride right now.
Honestly, put McBride and Laporta in a flex.
Right.
Yeah. Well, it depends. Because, like, if he has Ty Chandler with no Chandler with no Spear, with no Madison, I might, it's kind of hard to start a tight end over that, even as a tight end enthusiast.
Derrick Henry has been cheeks.
Yeah.
Breece Hall has been wildly inconsistent. So has Saquon Barkley. So I think that you can get away with putting Chandler in your running back spot, and then Chandler, McCaffrey. Then, I mean, assuming
at least one of those wide receivers are out. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so it's entirely possible. Check back in with us, Ryan. We do shows every day from 1 to 3. Thursday is, a big day for start sits, so we'll be around for that.
And we are not slandering the Laporta Potty romper stompers around here.
They can't. I mean, those guys are, to me, ranked 2 and 3. I still have Kelsey ranked 1. I know he had a down week this week. I know people are like, oh, dude, he sucks now. But he's still the number 1 tight end in points per game. And his matchups the rest of the year, all 3 of them. But, all 3 of the matchups are great for tight ends. So people are going to see why. They're going to realize why Travis Kelsey is the tight end one.
We also need to briefly talk about the misogyny involved in people blaming Travis Kelsey's downfall on Taylor Swift. Like
ridiculous.
Like get wrecked. That's all I'm going to say on that.
Though I will say it is at least kind of funny when the Chiefs fans call her Yoko Ono. We can admit that that's at least slightly funny.
It's mildly comedically humorous, but
just that one. But yes, I mean, you can't blame it on her. It's not
also,
like
Yoko got done dirty too. So
right, and the other part is that it's not like Taylor's going on the field here. Like Yoko was like in the band, right? Like,
right.
It's not like she's not affecting the actual.
Yoko was just on the 1s and 2s, like twisting dials and stuff.
Right, doing whatever thing was. But yeah, no, it obviously makes it's not part of it, dude. It's just like this whole thing with like, Tony Romo's going to Cabo in Mexico. It's like, dude, these guys are professionals. They know how to get ready. He skipped her birthday party. I mean,
right.
Oh, and then that caused a whole thing. Like they're breaking up because he's missing her birthday party. And I'm like,
welcome to the national paparazzi, baby.
Yeah.
Welcome to Us Weekly.
Who knew that this was going to be a tabloid show?
We're the now. Let's
about time, dude.
We can lean into the bit. We can just be the National Enquirer. Like we can have like a Bat Boy segment, and then talk about.
I was talking to Sellers about it, and I laid out this whole entire thing about how Patrick Mahomes didn't target Travis Kelsey because Brittany did that whole ad with Skims and blah 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 blah, and there was this whole like connection. It was like me and like Charlie from Always Sunny with the strings and whatever in the mailroom. Yeah. And Sellers,
Pepe Sylvia.
Sellers, God bless him, said, "Where did you get this information?"
Just deep cuts, dude.
And that was it, just straight faced as hell. Where did you get this information?
Yeah. Where do you get your ideas?
I'm like, you don't need information. It's right there. It's in front of you. Just look at it.
That's great. Preston, back in follow-up question. Keenan Allen, if he comes back this week, what are your thoughts on his usage? He's my wide receiver 2 behind Hill. Thanks for helping me make the right moves all season long. Appreciate you, Preston. As long as Keenan Allen is active, he's got to be in your lineup. I would say no question, top 12 guy. He's, as a North Dakota State guy.
Okay. I was waiting on that bingo card.
That is bingo card. But look, Easton Stick was the forgotten quarterback after Carson Wentz, before Trey Lance. He's a different breed of cat. He is more your typical backup quarterback that is accurate, knows what to do with the ball. I mean, he was dealt a bad hand last week. I mean, look, they were down 42-0 at halftime. He kind of had to claw his way back. So maybe you can discount some of his stat line. 257-3. Nobody was really starting him, but I think he can at least get the ball to Keenan Allen and Josh Palmer. As long as Allen's in there, I think he's a top 12 guy no matter what. I don't care. It could be me throwing the ball to him. I know I can get the ball to Keenan Allen.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. It just depends on the severity of the injury and is he coming back like to 100%
to a Chargers team that has to a team that has nothing to play for as well.
Right. That's the only concern with me. Like Hill, at least like. Obviously, that's not a start-sit situation because you're going to play Hill, but I would be interested in seeing who else is on your team and who else you can play because we talked about it last week, how to not overthink. I think that there's another layer of that onion. Well, sometimes you have to incorporate the situation. And is it going to be bad? Going up against the Bills, I feel like if Allen is not 100% healthy, could be a very bad matchup and a bad situation for him because he has had those very big, like 40-point games, but then he's had a couple single-digit games against bad matchups. So depending on his health, depending on who else you have, it feels wishy-washy, but it's the lawyer in me. It all depends on the totality of the circumstances.
Right. Yeah. So we got to know. We got to know who else you have. That's the end of it. Because like at a certain point, I'm just starting Keenan Allen over guys that I don't think are that good at all. You know what I mean? But again, we have to go through and look at every side of it. The other part of it that is kind of underrated is that a lot of times when you see the coaching staffs get fired, and the interims come in, they just lean on the veterans,
Mhm.
and it's like, so there could be a situation where this guy, whoever the interim coach is,
Giff
says, hey, you know
Smith
what?
or Jiff Smith, depending on what side of the GIF or GIF fence you're on.
Yeah, we watched the Raiders do it. And Devontae Adams immediately started getting more looks. Josh Jacobs got a lot of looks, So who knows? I mean, it's interesting. Another interesting one from that same vein is what happens with Austin Eckler, because it was Brandon Staley that was coming out saying, hey, we're going to split the carries and we're going to see what these other guys have. Well, now Brandon Staley's fired. Does the interim head coach feel the same way? Does he come in and say, hey, you know what? Well, I know that guy, said we were going to split carries, so we're going to keep doing that. Like, where's that philosophy coming from? Was it coming from way up top down that needed to happen? Because Tom Telesco, the GM, is gone too.
Yeah.
So, like, is that philosophy even still part of what they're thinking? Or do they just say, hey, you know what? Easton, there's Austin Eckler, there's Keenan Allen, go get him.
As someone who's been victimized frequently by Kellen Moore, it's a Kellen Moore philosophy.
Well, did he get fired too?
No, he's still there.
He's still there.
I said he's on
weird.
thin ice, though.
So that could be this. So the split could still be.
I feel like
place.
they are grooming Kellen Moore to come up and be the head coach, because let's be honest, nobody wants that head coaching spot or that GM spot. They are going to be $40 million over the cap. That all of their vets, Gerald Everett, Keenan Allen, Austin Eckler, they're all old in terms of football age. You don't really have much in draft capital. Like, nobody is going to want to step in and take that job. So I feel like Kellen Moore already being there is going to be elevated. And he was the one who was instrumental in elevating Tony Pollard and splitting with Zeke. And we've seen this season, it doesn't always work that way, because Tony Pollard is not a between the tackles kind of guy. Anyway, I'll step off my soapbox again.
No, I'm with you. And not to mention, with a lot of these teams, like, I think people are actually really starting to realize how top down the whole thing is, where it really does start with ownership. And like, people do not like Dean Spanos, like, not at all. And some of these teams, man, with the meddling owners,
if it weren't for David Tepper, Spanos would be getting a lot of shit right now.
Right, like Tepper, and I enjoy Jerry Jones. I really do. I love his attitude. I love when the fact that he goes on the radio and tells us what he's thinking. But there are arguments to be made as well,
Jerry Jones,
that maybe he's done more harm than good, right?
Yep. I would be out of frame, but I can't move this chair.
Off
It's
camera,
too heavy
I
for
totally
me.
almost tilted this chair. I almost fell into my bookcase. I did the little off the one of the wheels came off the thing. That was not great, Bob. That could have been an all-timer right there.
Careful.
Yeah. Careful.
But it would have been off camera, so nobody would have known.
Oh, he would have known. There'd be an MF drop there, 100%. Yeah. So we've got some more questions. We'll get into those here, but let's talk about some of these under the radar players that can help in your fantasy football playoffs. Britt, let's start with you. I know you're just on your soapbox, but who you got as far as players that you like heading into week 16?
Yeah. So I actually really like Curtis Samuel. We saw what he did last week. Sellers and I actually got into a little bit of an argument over who was going to be better, Logan Thomas or Curtis Samuel. Of course, Sellers was right, because Logan Thomas was the only tight end who didn't have a career week against the Rams, because I said it, I jinxed it. But in all actuality, they are going up against the Jets. And we know that the Jets thrive on the outside and they're susceptible to the slot. And that's where Curtis Samuel tends to line up a lot of the times. Sam Howell, if he doesn't want to get benched again, even if he does, I feel like Curtis Samuel is going to be a huge part. Obviously, he has that connection with Ron Rivera. I'm feeling a very good week for Curtis Samuel.
Yeah, honestly, Curtis Samuel's been great. And the other thing is that whenever the running back is out, like he does mix in a little bit carry wise, he even lines up in the backfield. He's lined up in the backfield, double digit snaps this year. I know he hasn't gotten to carry in a while, but it's always on the table for this guy. So I'm feeling pretty good about Curtis. What do you think?
Yeah,
Jeff?
I mean, the only thing, we know there's going to be pass attempts. There always is in Washington, so there's going to be plenty of opportunity. Terry McLaurin finally kind of stepped up last week. We know it's been a tough road for Terry McLaurin because we know he's better than what he's shown, and it's the Chiefs' Eric Bieniemy mentality of we've got to spread the ball out to like 74 different wide receivers and tight ends and everything like that. So Terry McLaurin's upside's been pretty much capped the entire year, but this was like, I think this was the best game that he's had all season, but almost by far. I mean,
and think about had he not gone down on that 1 yard line and gotten that last touchdown.
Yeah.
Skyrocket.
Yeah. This was his first game over 20 points. This is his first game over 17.3 points all season.
Yeah, I mean, and you saw who paid the price. Jahan Dotson, 1 target. Logan Thomas, 1 target. That's the problem when you have a bunch of different guys. That's why we like these highly consolidated offenses, especially the ones that use the fullbacks and tight ends that don't do anything. Like when everyone's healthy, the Dolphins are perfect, right? Because Durham Smythe does nothing. Alec Ingold plays a ton, so you don't have to worry about Braxton Berrios. And then there's just 2 wide receivers and 2 running backs. If they only had 1 running back, then it would be the perfect offense.
Yeah, Jahan Dotson is the paper ship that you light on fire and just put on the stream and just let it go.
Send it away. I feel like those guys, you need a very specific quarterback for those type of the contested catch jump ball guys. Sam Howell, if you watch him play, he wants to do it himself, for better or worse. He's the guy that scrambles around. He runs all over. He throws it away sometimes, but I mean, like, for the most part, this guy is trying to make something happen. That's not the kind of guy that says, oh, you know what, I'll just throw it up for grabs. You want like the pocket passer type quarterback that is just willing to say, hey, you know what, pocket's collapsing. Let's throw it up and see if Jahan can make a play. Let's see if George Pickens or Mike Williams can make a play, right? And Sam doesn't like doing that. So if you're a guy that needs those plays, then you're going to have a rough time. And that's what's going on with Jahan.
Yeah. Unless you're the Commanders, and let's throw it up and see if Byron Pringle can make a play.
Right. But there are.
See if John Bates can make a play.
Oh, God.
It's just not Sam Howell. They're not chucking it up over there. So,
yeah, not great. Yeah.
I was just going to say, Jahan Dotson had such a nose for the end zone last year that I feel like we were all a little bit duped about his production, because on the box score and on paper, he looked very, very good because he was always able to get those points to get into the end zone. But this quarterback change, this offensive scheme change has just not benefited him, like, whatsoever.
Right. And the offseason, you get all these in practice. They do drills, one-on-one jump ball drills. And that's how you get all these clips of George Pickens and Jahan Dotson and all these guys making crazy catches, because they know it's going to be thrown. It's going to be thrown no matter what, right? Like, it's just a one-on-one play. Lufa knows.
Lufa knows.
It's a one-on-one play, and the cameras catch it from every angle and it looks amazing. But in an actual NFL game, you have to have somebody that's willing to say, hey, you know what? We're just going to throw it up to this guy. And a lot of teams are willing to do that. AJ Green lived off that for many years, but they're just not willing to do it.
Right. Coop, a guy or two that you like for this week.
Yeah. Usually with these, I start with the guys that are most rostered and go down to the ones that aren't. And I figured I would go with some QBs and tight ends and defenses so you guys can focus on the fun players. So one guy that you have to make sure is not on the wire, I had him stashed in an IR spot. It's Darren Waller. He came back this past week. So in Yahoo leagues, he's owned in like 60% of leagues. So there's some leagues out there where he's still available, but in most sharp leagues, he's probably scooped up. He only played 40% of the snaps getting eased back in, and he had 6 targets, right? His next 2 matchups. So we imagine 40% this week, got to be at least 60, 70, 80%. And if he's going to get 6 targets on that, you know he's going to be involved. And his next 2 matchups for fantasy playoffs are the Eagles and the Rams, both bottom 5 teams versus tight end. So Darren Waller, in this environment, we actually do have a lot of good options at tight end for the first time in many years. The influx of young talent has really, juiced up the availability. But on the other side, it makes for some very tough decisions.
Yeah.
Right. It's like you look around, like obviously at the very top, maybe you're somebody that has both Travis Kelce and Trey McBride, or Kelce and Laporta, and maybe you have to make a tough decision there. But for the most part, you're starting all those guys. It's in the next range where you look around and you're like, okay, Darren Waller has this crazy upside, but there's also David Njoku out there that's got 14 targets. Dalton Kincaid has, we've seen it before. Obviously, this game script was terrible. It's
Cole
like
Kmet, yeah.
Jake Ferguson's been very safe. Like, where do you rank these guys? But Darren Waller's a guy that, this is the way I look at it. I don't want my opponent to be able to pick this player up. So I'm making sure that he's not sitting out there in any of my leagues, even if I'm not going to use him myself.
Yeah, that's the only reason that he didn't show up in the waiver wire article this week, was because he's rostered in around 70% of ESPN leagues, 60% of Yahoo leagues. That does not mean that you should not go out and pick up Darren Waller. It's just he did not meet the threshold to be in the waiver wire article.
Right.
So I do want to caveat that. Exactly. Like, the waiver wire article is from like 50 and below.
As it should be, because in sharp leagues, a lot of my leagues, I need to look at 30 and below, and you always cover that well. But like, the reality is that if you're in a league where there are guys like Waller on the wire, then across the board, there are probably great options all over the wire. So you're playing a different game than everybody else.
Right. Yeah. You could definitely expect Waller, 27% targets per route run, 6 targets on 22 total routes. So you could expect, if he's getting into the 60, 65, maybe even 70% range, as he gets ramped up, against Philly and the Rams in the next 2 weeks. Should be at least. It's really hard to start a guy from the New York Giants. I understand that, because we know their pass catchers have been pretty, for the most part.
Right.
But look, this is why you hold on to a guy like Darren Waller. This is a guy who, is top talent-wise, top 5 tight end. Absolutely. But
did you guys see Tommy Cutlets is doing a little autograph session this week?
No, actually, he was, except after the performance and all the hype around him, his agent demanded that the owner pay the fee, which was initially $10K, went up to $20K, and this small business was like, no, I can't do that. So he's not doing that anymore.
Unreal.
Yep.
That's a joke,
yeah, and
dude. That's
our producer in the chat just confirmed. Yeah, he just doubled his rate. I will send you guys the Instagram reel of the situation, because I don't just watch my phone for fun. No. It's all for football news.
Good times. Gotta love it. As far as players I like, I have quite a few. I would say Josh Palmer is a guy that sticks out, certainly with, he didn't have a catch at halftime on Thursday, but then caught a 79-year-old touchdown, 79-yard touchdown. He hasn't played in 79. He hasn't played in 79 years, but he caught a 79-yard touchdown. Look, if Keenan Allen is back, I think he's still at least a decent flex just based on volume. But if he's not, I mean, he's a guy you got to get into your lineup as a wide receiver 3. And then I also do look, the hen house is open for business, man. Hunter Henry might be the only Patriot that, Zeke Elliott, sure, but the only, you're probably not starting Pop Douglas, but you could throw Hunter Henry in your lineup.
What do you mean? All of my biases, my Arkansas and my Cowboys bias, going to the Patriots, and I'm standing them right now? What is happening? What universe is this? But for real, though, I talked about it in my waiver article about Henry. I put him in there yet again because he's kind of the opposite of Tucker Kraft, who was the second tight end in that article. Tucker Kraft is seeing all of the snaps, running all of the routes, getting a few targets because they spread the ball out so much.
Yep. Now
with Hunter Henry, he's not running or playing all of the snaps, but when he is, it's in the red zone, and he is a red zone magnet. And had it not been for that holding call, he would have 4 touchdowns over the past 2 weeks. Hunter Henry is just a beast, especially with Bailey Zappi. Their entire philosophy has changed. I don't know if Coop agrees with me as the resident Patriots fan, but I think that it's changed.
Wonder where that's going.
Yeah, no, I mean that's the thing. The week before when he scored the 2 touchdowns, honestly, I prefer what he did this week versus the prior week. Right, I'd rather see him score 1 touchdown but get a bunch of targets than score 2 touchdowns and only 3 targets. Right, because we don't want to chase touchdowns. We want to chase usage. So I will say that his usage could be better. Like he's not running 90% of the routes. He's not running 80, but he's at least out there and he's out there
70 in the
just
last
as
3
much.
weeks at least.
Right, which is that's where Cole Kmet, that's where
It's like
Jake
on the
Ferguson lived.
borderline of what you want. You want 80%.
Right, right. So if you had a tight end that like you couldn't really trust, or that if you were starting Taysom Hill and somehow survived this week, then yeah, go for Hunter Henry. I just look around and it's like we've gotten kind of lucky. You know what I mean? Where it's like Hunter Henry, where do you rank him for this week? You don't put him ahead of Kelsey, McBride, Laporta, right? Obviously not those guys. You don't put him ahead of Likely. You can't put him ahead of Njoku, right? You can't put him ahead of Kittle. But I guess
Put him ahead of
in
Schultz.
certain range,
Put him ahead of
Mhm.
Kmet.
you could
No, maybe not
put him ahead
Kmet.
of Schultz. I definitely put him ahead of Schultz. But you could probably put him ahead of Dallas Goedert.
Mhm.
I mean, maybe. I don't know. So he's definitely in that mix, especially deeper leagues, tight end premium, 2 tight end leagues, then you're going for it. But I just worry that with the Patriots, any given week, they'll come out and do something totally weird. I hate how they do that, right? So hopefully he's here to stay, and he's obviously a premier red zone. He's always been great in the red zone because he's great in first man to man. He just needs somebody who can deliver the ball, and now he's got Zappy. So moving on to
Can I just bring up what was said during the FSGA conference?
what was that?
That Mac Jones would be replaced by Zappy. And you told me to shut up.
Yeah, well, I only say that because my mom has a Mac Jones jersey. I have to protect her integrity. But yeah, I mean, I think they're both going to be replaced.
Which jersey does Ani Coop have?
Ani Coop has a Rams fan, so she has a ton of Rams jerseys.
Yes.
So yeah, she got autographed Jared Goff, who sent it with a personal video.
That's
He's
right.
a nice guy.
I forgot about that.
Yeah, she got a Todd Gurley from obviously when Todd Gurley was a super mega star. She got obviously jerseys that say Coopy on them. So Coopy's all set with jerseys. She got plenty of jerseys.
That's awesome. Love it. Let's get to some more of the questions in the chat here. Let's see. Twitch gang. Throw on those glasses for the Twitch gang.
I never have my glasses.
Apparently Coop was slacking a little bit too.
They were all set to the side. I never have my glasses.
Look at that. And with the ring light, it looked like it was like another pair of glasses in that too.
What's the He Can't See Without His Glasses movie?
I can't remember.
Coop, you're muted.
You're muted.
You muted yourself, Coop. I don't know.
Well, which defense do I start this week from Young Star? Bills, Packers, or Saints, and which defense should I drop to make space? Look, Bills get the Chargers. Adam Bernard, My Girl is the movie.
And the Bees. Yeah.
Never seen that one.
Me either.
Though I've heard it's sad.
I don't watch movies.
Oh no.
I don't watch movies.
I literally don't. I just know from reading which movies are supposed to be sad. But
I have a hard time finding movies to watch. Did wake up with the baby the other day because the baby couldn't sleep at 6 a.m. and I watched Casino from 6 a.m. to 9 a.m.
Wow, that's a cut.
Weird.
3-hour morning movie. Yeah, Casino. That's a good one. Did a little work, watched a little Casino. Also, I've been, what I'm watching lately? Bob's Burgers. You guys ever watch that show?
Great show.
That show cracking me up. I can't believe I never watched it till now. Like this is the first time I've ever watched it. So
well, speaking of casinos, I know that Las Vegas is very known for their casinos, but I've also been to a casino in New Orleans, which was very fun. Harrah's on Broad, I believe, or Canal. So I'm going to lean Saints just because. No, actually not. I'm not. I honestly, Bills against the Chargers and Easton Stick.
Yeah. As much as we would love to play the free square of Packers and Panthers, I don't even think you can't trust Joe Barry and that defense. I mean, the calls were for him to get fired. I mean, they have been starting since the beginning of 2022, and it still hasn't happened. And Matt LaFleur is channeling his inner Robert Saleh as far as the loyalty levels of guys in his room. And it's really disturbing. And it's actually kind of turning people against Matt LaFleur, as far as Packerland. So I have a hard time trusting the Packers, even a free square matchup. You have to start. I mean, I'm not starting the Saints against the Rams with how well Matthew Stafford's been throwing the ball lately. Got to go with the Bills.
And the reality that you find with defenses is we do at times get a little too cute with playing the matchups. And the hardest part about defenses, if I go through, I did it this 2 weeks ago. I went through and I looked at all the scoring for all my different leagues, and it's drastically different, right? Like in some of my leagues, the Chargers this past week scored like -10 points, like -15 points. And in one of my leagues, they scored -2 because it's set up that way, right? Where you get a certain amount of points. Their points for fourth down stops in that league. So like you really have to look at your settings. And in a lot of settings, the amount of points that need to be scored for you to really get crushed by negative points is a lot.
Yeah.
Like in many of mine, the max is -4, right? So in those, I'm looking around and I'm seeing who has the players that make plays that generate points, like who has the guys getting sacks, who has the guys getting turnovers. And that actually leads into one of the teams that I picked for our segment we're doing today. I said the Cincinnati Bengals, because if you're in a league where the amount of points you give up doesn't really matter as much, they are a team that goes out and gets a lot of sacks and generates a lot of turnovers. Like 15 interceptions they have this year, which is top 3 in the league. Trey Hendrickson by himself has 15 sacks this year. 15, dude. Like he's been a monster. Sam Hubbard's a monster. So like if you look around, you're not going to start him against the Chiefs the next week, but this week going up against the Steelers, where they're going to be starting Mason Rudolph, like Bengals are probably sitting on waivers in a lot of leagues. And there are definitely spots where I'm going to go and grab them and plug them in for this week.
I would be cautious about the Bengals, though, because they did just lose 2 of their premier defensive players for the season. So I would be a little bit wary about that. But
no, it's DJ Reader, a big one for sure.
100%.
But yeah, still going against
I'm not
Rudolph.
worried about it's and the thing is, again, look at the scoring on the top end too, because like how many games are actual shutouts? There are a few. They're very difficult to predict.
I mean, seemingly there's always a 6-3, 9-7, 6-0 game every week now.
Right. And the thing is, like in a lot of my leagues, I look at it like once the defense scores 3 points, you're not really getting a lot of points from preventing points. No. You're getting points from sacks and turnovers and touchdowns. Touchdowns is obviously the big difference maker. So yeah, I mean, losing DJ Reader is huge, but I'm still I could see Rudolph having a hard time with Hendrickson and Hubbard and the boys.
Yeah. And the boys.
And the boys. Yeah, unless you're like the Cowboys, a lot of those low scoring games are not because of how strong the defenses are. Even though like Joe Davis and somebody else on that Minnesota Raiders game tried to spin it like, look at these defenses. No, the offenses couldn't move the ball past freaking midfield. So what are you doing?
Well, so which one is he going to drop? Are we in agreement on the Saints?
Drop the Saints.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just making sure.
Hi, Andrea, by the way, your message before, is Chris Olave playing this week? Too early to tell. I believe he did not practice on Monday. So that is something we certainly need to monitor out for the short week on Thursday. Speaking of, we will be building a showdown lineup for that game, Saints and Rams, in just a few minutes. So stick around for that. Preston back in, wide receivers are Allen, Hill, Thielen, Flowers, planning a waiver move to drop Deonta Foreman for Josh Downs. I mean, I like it. Pittman did say he's probably he feels fine, despite that massive hit by DeMonte Casey that did suspend him for the rest of the season
and the playoffs.
Yeah, that was crazy,
Good.
But I get it from a league standpoint. I get that.
Yeah, that hit was dirty. I don't know about Downs. I really liked Downs, and you guys know that I was very high on Downs early on in the season. But his production over the past, 4 or 5 weeks just like really hasn't been there. And so I don't know if I would drop a running back, albeit, one in an ambiguous situation for somebody like Downs.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say is, I feel like I know more about Downs than I do this entire Chicago three-way split at running back, to where you all at this rate with the way those three were used, just pretty much even across the board. I can't start any of those guys. You're never going to start any of those guys. So I would be using 4 minutes a landmine for somebody else to pick up to grab Downs.
For the last 4 or 5 years now, I've been writing an article that talks about slot wide receivers. It talks about how you need guys that play flanker, not just slot. And since I've been doing this, and I went back through the last 5-6 years, there's only been one player to play more than 80% of their snaps in the slot and finish top 24 at all.
Cole Beasley.
And it was very close. Cole Beasley was actually 20. I think he finished 26th one year, but he's a great example of that type of player. It's actually a player from your Cowboys. And it's kind of a ringer pick, but it was rookie CeeDee Lamb. CeeDee Lamb, because he was coming out from Michael Gallup and Amari Cooper. He finished exactly wide receiver 24, right? Here's the list of guys that have played over 75% of their snaps in the slot this season. Hunter Renfrow, Jamison Crowder, Tyler Boyd, Josh Downs, Wan'Dale Robinson, Paris Campbell, Kevontae Turpin, Kyle Phillips, Khalil Shakir, Isaiah McKenzie, Parker Washington. That's it, right? The closest we have to somebody who is highly fantasy relevant, and they are, is Jaden Reed.
Mm-hmm.
Jaden Reed, but there's been plenty of games where they've been missing one of the other wide receivers where he's played, more snaps, and he gets the carries. So he's close to an exception to the rule, but even he doesn't play 75% of his snaps in the slot. That's been the problem for Josh Downs. He 82% of his snaps in the slot, and he comes out of the game for Alec Pierce. The upside gets canceled by that. So unfortunately, where we have to wait for, in Dynasty, we love it because next year or the year after, he's eventually going to be that guy. He just isn't right now.
Right.
Yep.
Let's hit some of these questions real quick, and then we got to build our showdown lineup here. So George, add Zamir White or Gus Edwards, and who would you flex between those two? Jones, Williams, Noah Brown. I'm probably adding Gus Edwards now with Keaton Mitchell torn ACL out for the season. It's probably going to be that same split that we had in the first 7-8 weeks, with Gus Edwards taking a lot of the carries, like the kind of the Brian Robinson, Antonio Gibson split, but much better for Edwards. So I'd be picking him up.
I'm not going to start him over Aaron Jones or Javonte Williams, though. I don't think.
Oh, Javonte has a bad matchup this week. The concern also as well is that Gus Edwards has a very bad matchup against the 49ers.
Right.
For Javonte, the Patriots have not allowed a single running back to have over 70 yards since week 9. So I really don't think that Javonte is going to get there. I would actually it depends on if you're looking for long-term or just this week, as far as adding Zamir White or Gus Edwards. I think if you're looking for just this week, you go with White. If you're looking for the rest of the season, then you go with Edwards. And I would still start Aaron Jones and Noah Brown regardless.
Yep.
Right. So just by the nature of saying we would start Aaron Jones and Noah Brown, you should be picking up Gus Edwards.
Yeah.
Because I think Josh Jacobs will be back. And I mean, the Patriots and the Jets are just black holes for fantasy football because they have good defenses and they have decent special teams and they have terrible offenses, which those games, luckily the Dolphins have been able to escape, but a lot of those games are just bad. Like you saw with rare occasion, the Cowboys this week, when they don't fight back, that's what it looks like. The Bills only threw 15 times.
Yeah, it sucked.
It was obviously great. It was great for James Cook, but it was uncharacteristic, right? It's not going to happen that often, but it happens every week with the Patriots and the Jets, right? Where it's nobody can move the ball, nobody even wants to, and when you have an offense like the Patriots, all you're doing is punting it down inside the 20 for the other team, and then you're holding them, and they're punting it deep on you. It's the worst for fantasy. The worst thing for fantasy football is a goal line stop. The second worst is a deep punt.
Right. We got a few more questions in the chat here. How do you feel about Wicks if Reed or Watson can't go? Wicks has definitely earned the trust, of the staff there. His ramping up with the last 2 weeks. Watson has not played 64% of the snaps, up to 78% last week, 697, his best game. He's still He's still probably a very low end flex right now. You be like a break glass in case of emergency. But he is involved there going up against Carolina. You got to figure it's going to be a positive game script, but it'd be a very tough sell to trust him in my fantasy playoff roster.
I don't know. He showed up in the waiver wire article. His snaps, his targets, his yardage. People are comparing him to Devontae Adams, like a young Devontae Adams. I really like Wicks, so I would not be afraid of starting him if Reed and or Watson can't go.
I think people forget that young Devontae Adams was like terrible. He was dropping passes like crazy.
I don't mean that he was terrible.
But I'm just saying that when you people say, "Oh, that's crazy. You can't compare him to Devontae Adams." But if you go back and watch Devontae Adams highlights from his first 2 years, he was dropping the ball all the time. People were writing articles. It's time to move on from Devontae Adams. So, it's not crazy at all. This guy, Dontavian Wicks, might have better stats than rookie Devontae Adams. Devontae Adams had 400 yards, if that.
He's got almost 500, 31 for 491 and a touchdown.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Devontae Adams as a rookie, so he has 491 through 13 games. Devontae Adams as a rookie had what?
About that. It was I want to say it was 50 for 560 or something like that.
About that.
Yeah, he had 38 for 446. In his second season, he had 50 for 483. So 2 seasons in, he hadn't cracked 1,000 total yards. So it's not crazy. So let's go.
Right. Let's get into Cruz Garcia. Start 2 running backs, Pollard, Gibbs, Achane. Guy playing has money. If that changes anything, also McBride or Ferguson. McBride is clearly in must-start territory. I think you're starting him no matter what. And then Pollard, Gibbs, Achane. What say you both?
Pollard and Gibbs.
I'm going Gibbs and Achane.
No Pollard.
Well, and I will caveat by saying this. If Jonathan Hankins plays, then I'm going to switch to Pollard. If Jonathan Hankins is out, then it's Achane.
Yeah, the Vegas does not seem phased by the recent game for the Cowboys with this spread. It's 51.5 point over under, only 1.5 point spread in Miami. So very interesting. Maybe they're not expecting Tyreek Hill to play. I don't know, but it has me interested in Cowboys for this week for sure.
Just be another week that I throw up.
Yeah, it just goes to show you there's no player that can move a line that's not a quarterback like Tyreek Hill. Because if we know he's playing, that line's going to come up. And then the last one here from Josh before we build our showdown lineup. Do you like Denver against the Patriots defense or Denver against Patriots defense?
I guess so. Not really.
Yeah, it's iffy for me. It's 3 points, 4 points, 5 points.
Yeah, it doesn't really move the needle.
Yeah.
Right.
But speaking of move the needle, let's make a showdown lineup.
Hey, let's go.
Alarm fantasy football.
Stafford, Puka, Cup, Kamara, and then 2 guys that are $200.
Everybody.
Who's $200? Tommy Hudson. Do you think he could pull a Tanner Hudson one week?
Well, this week it got back to
Austin Trammell. Played 2 snaps last week.
We're back to everybody plays every snap except for the guys that don't, and it's Trammell plays 1, Ben Skoranek plays 2. We're
also,
back to
how
that.
is Kirkwood $3,600?
No idea.
If you make him captain, he is. If you don't, he's 2,004.
Gross. Still, regardless.
Because he scored a touchdown.
Yeah, it's point chasing.
I mean, the whole thing.
They're not even giving us a discount on DeMarcus Robinson.
I was going to say the whole thing is about Tutu Atwell and if he's going to play or not. Because if he doesn't, then it's wheels up on D-Rob season. Who, by the way, he might be my Rashid Shaheed of last year in King's Classic.
I think Tutu is expected to play, so there is that.
Well, cool. I get to play Jahan Dotson. Not great, Bob. I think you got to throw. I mean, who? It's either Cup or Kyra. I mean,
who the heck is John Trey Kirkland?
We're going with Cup because he's going to be playing out of the slot. Alontae Taylor.
Okay, Cup is captain. Captain Cup.
Stafford's got to be in.
I'm being sassy and I'm making an executive decision here.
Davis Allen.
I thought about that too.
Cheap.
How about Jimmy Graham? And let's just chase that touchdown because he has showed up way too much in the box score recently.
He has 6 receptions and 4 touchdowns.
I know. He showed up way too much in the box score. And for
He's
a
a
showdown
star.
lineup, like, let's go. Let's differentiate ourselves.
I can't do
Kev.
Jimmy Graham.
Kev, we
Kev
gotta
left.
go.
We do have to go.
I'm
We gotta
starting
get
John
Coop
Trey
out.
Kirkland,
We should have thought of that before
Miller-
mentioning Jimmy Graham.
Miller Forrestall.
Oh my god.
Geez, Zach Evans. Is Zach Evans droppable in Dynasty? He has not done the damn thing.
He's
Probably.
not. No, he's not.
You hold on to him?
For a little bit. Not long.
Yeah.
Short leash.
You get Jimmy Graham in there, and the world is.
I put
that's what I'm saying.
Puka in there too with Stafford, Kirkwood, Jimmy Graham, and then Chris Olave.
If you put A.T. Perry in there, you can almost get Kamara. If you put Kamara in there, you can start Ben Skoranek. No, that's too deep. It's too deep.
I would go Shaheed. Go Shaheed.
I don't have as much of a need for Shaheed as typical, but
There's so much money left over.
We can. That's a good way of differentiating yourself.
It
Like
is.
Sabotaging
completely.
your team.
And no,
sabotaging your team is always the way to differentiate.
I'm starting Lucas Haversick.
and then sellers in the chat got to play Taysom Hill. Always the Taysom Hill truther.
Yeah, good game. Good game this past week. You know there are people that had bye weeks that are going to start him again this week. They just didn't even.
100%.
They don't care. The Taysom people don't care.
The Taysom slappies always get their way.
Can't do
Stay tuned for Alarm Fantasy Football. Of course, Howard Bender, Andrew Cooper will be on there answering your questions, going through the waiver wire as well. Britt, anything else before we get on here? We're going to see Coop in just a couple minutes on there. We don't need to talk to him.
Yeah.
I mean, we do, but
my waiver article came out today. My sleeper picks article come out on Monday, Thursday, and on Sunday. I went 3 for 3 yesterday on my sleeper picks, which is great. And then the weekly matchup previews come out on Thursday. So go check it out.
awesome stuff. Target report bullet points is out for this week. You will see Hunter Henry on the cover of that. It did pain me to put a New England Patriot on the cover of that, but you know what? We persist. Talk about Josh Palmer on there as well. So go check that out. Of course, Target Report every Thursday. Going through all the players you'll be putting in your lineups, but we are going to head out for Alarm Fantasy Football. For Britt Flinn, I'm Kevin Tompkins. Toodles.